Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, in life, she restored the freedoms of democracy. In death, she restored the dignity of the Filipino. Corazon Aquino, a woman of exceptional grace and nobility, offered her life for the nation, from the declaration of martial law to the imprisonment of her husband, Ninoy, and from his assassination to her ascent to the presidency until the last painful days of her earthly life. She believed that freedom, justice, and democracy can be attained even by the example of one's own life, and that we are worth dying for. And when her life was not enough, she offered her last days of pain for the redemption of our people, so that by her leadership, her sacrifices, and her agony, we may learn to internalize the ideal that she embodies: love of God and of one another. No greater act of heroism could there have been than that by which the totality of both her public and private days were dedicated for a cause greater than herself, the cause of a people she once liberated from dictatorship. Truly, Corazon Aquino deserves to be proclaimed the hero of our present time. She was a recipient of the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award, the Martin Luther King Jr. Nonviolent Peace Prize, the International Leadership Living Legend Award from the Women's International Center, Psalm 23 Honoris Causa, degree conferment from prestigious foreign schools, among other recognitions bestowed upon her. All these serve notice to the world of the presence and potential of the Filipino. In 2006 came a distinction that I believe should awaken us as Filipinos. She was listed by the Time magazine as one of Asia's heroes for helping chart the course and shape the times during the most difficult decades in Asia. She was in excellent company, noteworthy of which is Mahatma Gandhi, an extraordinary and deeply spiritual leader of the world's first successful non-violent movement for independence from colonial rule, and of Jawaharlal Nehru, Gandhi's passionate partner in building a democratic India. In the mold of anti-apartheid activists that the first South African president elected in a fully representative democratic election, Nelson Mandela, Corazon Aquino thus belonged. If Mandela helped to stamp out the policy of racial segregation and lead the transition towards multiracial democracy in his country, Corazon Aquino was the fuse that ignited public fervor in dismantling authoritarian rule, ending years of repression and violence, and restoring democracy in the Philippines. There may have been others in different battlefields for independence and democracy all throughout the world, whose accomplishment may be likened to what Corazon Aquino had fought for. But what distinguished her from the rest is that, even in the face of death, she continued to be in the front lines to protect and sustain our gains at EDSA and help us understand that we can be a great nation again if only each one of us will together pick the broken pieces of our country, rebuild our foundations and institutions, and love one another. It is understandable for those who stood by her to give tribute to her many exceptional traits. But coming from these representations, as one of those who vigorously campaigned for the late Ferdinand Marcos in the snap elections of 1986, the highest tribute I now bestow on President Corazon Coanco Aquino can only come from the sincerity and seriousness of my intent to recognize and name her as a truly outstanding Filipino, deserving the nation's honor, respect, and adulation. For what is a hero? Except someone who offers oneself for the redemption of the people. And that is exactly what she did. Mythologically, she slew the dragon that was threatening our lives. But when that dragon was slain, the tentacles began to spoon into the mutations that erode our lives today. Greed, deceit, corruption, injustice, poverty, apathy, and despair. It will take another lifetime, perhaps even more, to have another Corazon Coanco Aquino again. And so before our time is up, on behalf of a grateful people, I urge you, my colleagues in this chamber, to join me in proclaiming Corazon Coanco Aquino as a national hero as contained in the House Resolution, Joint Resolution number 41. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, it is not enough that we recognize the qualities of heroism in others. It is equally as important to recognize the hero that is within each and every one of us. The life and death of Corazon Coanco Aquino, while given importance by an admiring nation, can have greater value and significance by internalizing the virtues and the values by which she lived. Only then can the path of heroism be relevant and beneficial to all. When we face the electorate in the national elections of 2010, do we face our people as leaders or as heroes? May the life and times of the hero we proclaim today be our guide and inspiration. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, again I invite you to join me as co-author of this joint resolution. It may be noteworthy that no less than the Honorable Speaker Nograles, and Deputy Speaker Raul Del Mar have already signed as co-authors of this joint resolution, and I would sincerely appreciate if you will and we will act as one collective body in approving this joint resolution. May the life and times of the hero we proclaim today be our guide and inspiration. Thank you, and mabuhay ang Pilipinas. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, may we recognize the Honorable Gentleman from Nueva Ecija, the Honorable Antonino.
Mr. Speaker, I was wondering if my esteemed colleague would be open to some clarificatory questions. Mr. Speaker.
He may, if he so desires.
Certainly, Mr. Speaker, I would be more than willing to be interpolated.
Then the gentleman may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to commend my esteemed colleague, Mr. Speaker, in his proposal for a joint resolution. in which our beloved past president, Cory Aquino, would be proclaimed the national hero. However, I just have one question, Mr. Speaker. Whereas I am cognizant of the contributions of our ex-president to the reestablishment of our democracy in our country, I would like to know